Welcome to Flip Your Lid with Kim Honeycutt. Kim is a psychotherapist and executive director of ICU Talks, a mental health speaking ministry. This is a podcast about how to flip your lid and learning how to reconnect to who you really are.
All right, everybody. So I have a really special young woman with me today. You're about to learn a whole lot. Let me tell you about Liz Burkholder. She's an integrative nurse practitioner. She's a hypnotherapist and a trauma specialist. She's also a childhood trauma survivor herself. Her mission is to help others actually heal from trauma and reclaim their lives. Trauma-focused hypnotherapy is one of the main therapies she uses with her clients. Liz is also pursuing a Ph.D. in mind-body medication from Saybrook University. So if you all take a second and help me welcome Liz to Flip Your Lid. Hey, Liz.
Hi, thank you for having me.
Hey, I appreciate your time and being a part of this. So, really glad you're here. There's so many questions I have for you, and I just want to start with the question we always start with, and that is, what life event, what experience did you have that flipped your lid, that caused you to disconnect from who you are, and what measures did you have to take to reconnect to who you are?
Yes, that's an excellent question. And I think we all have that experience or more than one experience like that. So the biggest thing I would say, actually, there were two really big traumas that happened when I was a child. There's kind of a lot, but the two big things actually have that both flipped my lid. The first one was when my father left when I was 5 years old and basically abandoned our family, me and my three brothers. And we never saw him again, ever.
Wow, never again, ever.
Well, until I was like 37 or 38 years old. A few years ago, and I went to him to actually tell him in person that I forgive him, that I had forgiven him because I'd healed through so much. So that was a very traumatic thing and created a lot of issues in my life throughout my childhood, adolescence, young adulthood, the whole abandonment wound. And then my stepfather came into my life shortly after, about a year or two after that, and he was sexually abusive, and he was an alcoholic, and there was, a bunch of trauma kind of surrounding that. And so that was another thing that was a huge childhood wound for me. And both of those things together in such a short period of time really just, I completely, looking back now, I know that I disconnected from myself, just like you said. I disconnected from, my body, my feelings, my emotions. It was this whole process that I learned for survival. I even, as a young child, I remember in first grade, I was very talkative and outgoing. And I would get report cards that would say, Elizabeth is a pleasure to teach, but she needs to control her talking, and this was over and over. And she sings in class and it's beautiful, but she needs to control it. So I was singing and talking. And after the sexual abuse happened, when I was around 7 or 8, I completely lost my voice, almost completely. So I didn't speak for years. Like I went to school and went all day long where I could not speak. I did not speak. I didn't open my mouth. So I really lost my voice. And the only time I would really speak was at home around my family. And then that's when rage would come out. And I was, very angry, of course, and rageful, and no one knew what was wrong with me, of course, because I didn't tell, because most kids don't tell those things. Right. And so I became this person that was very withdrawn, very quiet, could not speak my truth, or what even was that? I didn't know. Disconnected from my feelings and emotions, and just became this whole different person. And years later, as an adolescent, I began to act out a lot and had undiagnosed PTSD, undiagnosed depression, anxiety, social anxiety disorder. And so looking back, I know that all of those things were what was going on with me. But at the time I thought, what is wrong with me? There's something wrong with me.
Right.
I have all these issues. I'm all alone. No one understands. And when I was 17, I got arrested.
And I got arrested when I was 17. Look, we're sisters in that. How amazing.
Oh my gosh.
What did you get arrested for?
Oh my gosh. Well, actually several things before this. several things. I mean, shoplifting, running away from home, whatever, you name it. This was the one that actually sent me off to a juvenile delinquent boot camp training school. And it was for grand larceny. So my friend and I thought it was a good idea to steal her stepdad's car while he was out of town. So we kind of broke into his car and we thought, oh, it's her stepdad. So it's really not that bad, right? So we're 17 and wild and crazy. And we got caught. And when we got home, we ran away in his car. And then we decided, well, we don't have any money and we don't have anywhere to go. So we came back home and the cops were waiting for us and took us to jail. So they sent us, they put us on probation. And another thing that happened is because I had such trouble with social settings, because of my social anxiety and all of those things, I ended up dropping out of high school when I was 17. Wow. So all of these things are around that same time. And one of the things was they put me on probation and said, you have to go back to school. So I didn't go because it was too painful, because I would have panic attacks, severe panic attacks in school. And so then they sent me to this juvenile delinquent training school boot camp for like 12 weeks. And at the time I thought, this is the worst thing that could ever happen to me, right? A 17-year-old sent away like 4 hours away to this boot camp, away from home, away from everything, away from everybody, locked up basically, and there for 3 months. I'll tell you though, it was like the best thing that ever happened to me. So looking back, I know that it was a miracle and it was a saving grace and it saved my life. So in that training school, I found this book, and it was called You Can't Afford the Luxury of a Negative Thought by Peter McWilliams and another co-author. But this book was all about kind of like changing your thoughts, and how, it talked about how thoughts become our beliefs and our beliefs become our behaviors and our behaviors become our actions versus, and becomes our life basically. And it was all this like knowledge that I'd never heard and all this amazing stuff. And I remember just lying in bed at night in my little cot, because we had little army cots that we had to make up perfectly in the morning and all that. And I would just have these aha moments after aha moments. And I know it was a divine intervention at that time. And it was the beginning of a very deep self-healing spiritual type journey. It was the beginning of that for me. And I just remember thinking, oh my gosh, I don't have to live like this forever. Like, I don't have to accept this as my future, and I can overcome these things, and I can become a different person by just changing my mind and changing my thoughts and changing my mindset. And, it was just awakening for me. And so since then I got out of training school and kind of fell into every self-help book that I could find, because that's all I had at the time. I had no resources. We were poor in Mississippi. I had no father. My mother was busy and probably emotionally unavailable with her own stuff, and just had no resources. So this was all I had, was this whole diving into this self-healing journey through these self-help books and these teachers. So it was life-changing, and just fell into this whole path of changing my life and overcoming all of that and healing myself and changing my mindset from this horribly pessimistic, self-hatred, self-loathing person to becoming just truly joyful and grateful. And to this day, like super grateful for everything, everything, because I've been able to heal through so much. And so that's basically how my journey started, and how I became a person who wants to reach out and help others do the same. So.
Wow, such a powerful testimony. I got to go back to the idea of a 5-year-old. Like, I don't know how a 5-year-old can conceptualize and internally reconcile that dad's here, dad's gone. Right. And I'm assuming within that family system, like, there's no therapy for you at that point. There's no understanding of what you're supposed to do. Right. And then to the next man that comes in your life, sexually abuses you within your own home, which once again is not a place of safety. So it goes from someone who talks and who's singing because she's free in your yourself, your essence, to someone who says nothing.
Right.
Did anybody notice?
It was such a painful time. I'm sure teachers noticed, and they would reach out to my mom and they would ask, because I would miss a lot of days of school. And I'm sure they noticed that I was like painfully shy and withdrawn and couldn't speak. I mean, But as far as I remember, a couple of teachers reached out and were concerned about me missing school so much and so many days. And honestly, I don't know what my mom told them, but and I'm sure she noticed something was probably wrong. But again, she had no resources and no information and no knowledge and she didn't know what to do. She had 4 kids on her own,
Right.
poor, no resources. And she honestly, I know now that she did the best she could at the time, but it was a very painful, difficult journey.
Yeah. Oh, absolutely. Absolutely. Because it sounds like, that again, you went, it affected your dorsal vagal, right? Like you went into freeze. I know you speak that language.
Absolutely.
And so like you shut down, and then your fight back on some level was probably starting to rebel and steal things and do something, right?
Absolutely.
And we know that a lot of times shoplifting has to do with when someone feels that something's been taken from them, from their life, they will steal merchandise.
Right. Oh, and that makes so much sense for me. Of course, I feel like many things had been taken from me.
And they were very much your innocence. Your innocence.
Oh, definitely.
Who do you think you were before you lost your innocence at a young age? Any idea of who you were prior to losing your innocence?
I think it was just that, like you said, just free. I was free and joyful and happy most of the time. And then all of a sudden, all of those things were taken away,
Right.
my innocence, my freedom, my voice, my power, my everything.
Right.
I've worked and through the hypnotherapy that I do, there's parts of the sessions where we literally go back and reclaim those soul parts that were lost.
Yeah, I love that.
Those things and have done those things multiple times in different situations that I've gone, because we do a lot of age regression and go back to those moments and do the processing and all of that. But I mean, so much was lost, but the main thing was probably just my freedom to be who I am.
Yeah, that is spot on. It's just that idea of who you're supposed to be, who you're meant to be, and then having life experiences that shift to that. And trauma happens to all of us, but without support of that trauma, it becomes complex. It becomes lifelong, and it doesn't have to be.
Right. Absolutely. And that's, you talked about the dorsal vagal response and I do a lot of that work with my patients too. The training that I do, we call it shock. And so there's the parasympathetic shock and the sympathetic shock. And, it's the fight or flight, the sympathetic and the freeze, the parasympathetic. And I was literally in and out of those all the time. So when I was in these high anxiety, sympathetic shock states, I was having severe anxiety and panic attacks. And then, your body gets worn out doing that. And you have to almost go back to the complete opposite polar end of freeze. So I was in and out of those freeze and fight or flight shock states all the time.
Right. And it's so great to have words now, but when we're going through it, we don't have terminology or understanding. And you obviously are thirsty for knowledge to be 17, sent to boot camp. And that is where you get your hands on a book that you start absorbing.
I consider myself extremely blessed, lucky, grateful for that, because I now work with some adolescents that are like 15, 17, 19, and they have zero desire to read a book at all. And then some are like, yes, I would love to read that. But I think, gosh, how grateful I am that was an avenue for me through reading and through books, and I believe that it's different for everyone. And there's different routes for everyone. That just happened to be the one for me to open that door. And it was such a blessing. So,
So how do we go from 17 and having to remove yourself from high school to pursuing your Ph.D.? Tell me that journey.
I know it's been such a lifelong journey, and I know that it's all part of my journey. And, so I got home from training school and decided, I want to go back to school. So I signed up for my GED, and I'm in Mississippi at this time. And I thought, okay, I got to start with my GED, and then I'm going to go to community college. And so I did that, and I enrolled in community college and couldn't decide what I wanted to do, but I loved computers at the time. And so I went into computer programming for an associate's degree in computer programming, because at that time I was 17, 18, 19. Again, I was very shy, and I didn't want to be around people. I didn't want to work with people. I thought I didn't like people. So I thought I'll just work with computers all day. So I did that. And I actually did get that associate's degree in computer programming. In the meantime, I started working in this department store in my hometown. It was similar to Belk. And that working in sales really was also another blessing because it helped me to slowly start to come out of my shell. And I started realizing, oh, I do like working with people. Like this is fun, interacting with people and learning how to do that because I didn't know how. And I would watch other people and I would study other people and see how they interacted. And I think, oh yeah, that's like, I would like to be outgoing and just like that with people. And so I would study other people in that way and eventually became more outgoing in the sales industry and retail. So that was very helpful. And then I got that computer programming degree and decided, well, I don't really want to work with computers anymore. I want to do something with people. So I worked in sales and retail for a while and became like lead sales manager and things like that. But at some point I realized I want to go into nursing school. And so I went and enrolled into this associate's degree nursing program in my local town in a community college again. And I think I was 27 at that time, actually. So this is like several years of shifting my life and shifting away from old friends and getting away from those old people who would kind of lead me down the wrong path or who I just followed down the wrong path.
Right.
Which was actually the right path. Looking back, it's all divine intervention. But I ended up going to nursing school for this 2-year degree and fell in love and decided, wow, this is exactly where I need to be. I love this. I love nursing. I'm going to keep going and be a nurse practitioner. I knew that in the associate degree program. So I got that and became a nurse and started working as an RN and went back for my bachelor's degree, which was like a 1-year kind of transition program through University of North Alabama, and then applied to grad school for my nurse practitioner degree. This is all it's a long span of time. In that meantime, I got married and then I had 2 kids. And while I had 2 kids, I was in grad school for nurse practitioner at George Washington University because we had lived in DC for about 4 years. Got that and then decided, okay, I'm ready to do my Ph.D. And so I looked around at different schools, and this one was the one that really resonated with me for the work that I do, which is the mind-body medicine and the mind-body connection and healing through those modalities. And so here I am, but that's kind of the short version.
Yeah, but that's beautiful. So can you talk a little bit about how do you have a dad not in your life, have a stepdad that molests you, and then find safety with a man in a marriage?
Okay, and that was a very long journey too, because
I bet.
Because for a long time, I was severely afraid of intimacy, and I had the intimacy issues, trust issues, communication issues. And I thought I will never be able to be in a relationship, because I had all these beliefs that men are dangerous, that I can't trust men are liars, men hurt you, love hurts, don't fall in love, you get abandoned, like all these beliefs that later through hypnotherapy, I realized were all there. But I just started realizing too, reading all these books that was an issue, and that I was attracting the same type of man that my father was, which was absent, emotionally absent, even though he was physically absent too. As I was seeking, I realized that I was seeking or reaching out or attracting men who were emotionally unavailable. And so I was in a couple of not so great relationships. The one from age 22 till about 28 was very dysfunctional. It was tumultuous. It was verbally abusive, emotionally abusive. Mm-hmm. We were very toxic for each other. We both had things that we both had a lot of trauma, unhealed, unprocessed trauma. But during that relationship, even now, if I give such gratitude for that relationship, because that relationship showed me and brought up all the things that I needed to work on and put it right in my face and said, here it is. If you want to have a healthy relationship, here are the things that you need to work on, which is all of that trust and communication and intimacy issues and looking at myself and allowing myself to be open with myself and another person. And so through that relationship, it was very difficult, but it was very eye-opening, and I did a lot of healing through it. And then finally left Mississippi and moved here to North Carolina when I was 29. And there was a lot of grief there. I grieved that relationship, but in that grieving, you grieve. When we grieve, we don't just grieve the one thing, we grieve everything sometimes, all of it. Mm-hmm. Yes. So in that, I went through this about 8 or 9 month period of just purging and grieving that relationship, my childhood, all of these things. And of course, this whole time I'm doing all this reading and work on myself and internal work. And then one day I woke up and I thought, okay, I'm ready for a healthy relationship. Like, I'm going to only attract in a healthy relationship and nothing less than, and I'm going to not be with anyone that does not treat me with respect and, worthiness and all these things. And I'll be alone forever before I settle for anything less. And then a couple months later, I met my now husband. So, but it was a journey,
Right.
going through all these toxic relationships and learning what I needed to learn for myself.
Yeah, and probably a whole lot of unlearning and relearning
Right.
and new learning and so much. And
Yes.
in that, if you can talk a little bit about the subconscious of that you were subconsciously gravitating towards men who represented the wounding from childhood.
Right.
And your awareness of that, and then how you transition from that, because people can even have the head knowledge but not know how to heal the subconscious of it. Can you speak into that?
Right. And that's the thing that I started realizing this because of all the reading that I was doing about all of this inner work and relationship. And that was another thing. So relationships, I, of course, had no idea what a healthy relationship was or what that even looked like. So I was reading all these books on relationships and healthy relationships and how do you have that. And these books about unhealthy relationships and verbally abusive relationships and addictive relationships. And I thought, okay, those are the things that I have. And these are the things that I want. So how do I get there? And so it was a lot of workbooks that I would do, and like workbooks where you're writing out the things and your beliefs and what you want and what you don't want. And the pattern became pretty clear to me through doing that's what I was doing and attracting, because deep down, that's what I felt like I deserve, or that's all I'm worth,
Yep.
or that's all, I had no worth, self-worth basically.
Mm-hmm.
And so that's what I was attracting. And so and it was that pattern where I knew, then I began to know this intellectually, but I kept doing it compulsively, going back to this very toxic relationship. And we broke up and got back together literally probably 100 times, in this span of time, because I would say, no, I deserve better. And intellectually I deserve better and I want better. But there was this compulsion, this drive, this subconscious compulsion drive to go back to that. And I just had to keep digging in and saying, okay, where is this unworthiness within me that keeps saying that that's all I deserve and that's all I can ever have, And so just working at that over and over and over, I did lots of affirmations. I did lots of journaling. I think journaling is a very healing tool to help kind of bring your subconscious things out onto paper. So I did a lot of journaling at that time because I didn't have hypnotherapy at that time, unfortunately. And just constantly worked at it. And then finally, and through prayer and things like that, and then finally a situation happened where I caught him with another woman. And because I had been praying for a sign, and I was like, oh God, give me a sign. I need a sign. And so then that happened and slapped me in the face. And I was like, okay, I get it now. So I moved out of Mississippi, and I don't know, it was just a series of things, but it's like you said, it's that subconscious. We can know it consciously, but how do we clear out the subconscious stuff and actually do that work? And again, I think people just do it in different ways, and sometimes through therapy and sometimes through self-therapy or self-journaling or through prayer, meditation, different things. But there were a lot of things that I started to incorporate. But then 4 years ago is when I discovered hypnotherapy, but I had already been married for a few years, and then just went deeper and deeper and deeper into all of that and those subconscious beliefs, and just kind of cleared out more and more and more. So
did you
I don't know
find,
if that quite answered.
No, you did. It's a beautiful answer. Did you find hypnotherapy professionally as what you were wanted to stay as a type of modality, or was it a personal quest and then it became like, oh, I want to be able to teach others?
So it started out because 4 years ago, I had my own practice and I was working with mental and emotional health patients. And so I found myself as a conventionally trained nurse practitioner, I found myself just prescribing meds all the time. And, for some people that's helpful, and there's a place for that, of course. But I would have people come to me and just say, you know what, you're the first person that's ever really talked to me and listened to me and asked me what's going on underneath, Right. And I thought, wow, there's something to this, because in our medical field, the conventional world that I come from, nurse practitioners or the physicians or the doctors don't do that, right? We get like 8 minutes to 10 minutes with a patient, and we don't really have time to dig into all of that. I thought, well, I really want to spend the time with patients and talk to them and see what's going on underneath, and not just throw them a prescription.
Right.
And if that works, we can do that too. So And they started telling me all this trauma that they had. I thought, gosh, I've got to be able to help them on a deeper level. They're coming to me for a reason. And my friend, who's a therapist in Mississippi at the time, she said, you should do this hypnotherapy training. It's called heart-centered hypnotherapy. And I thought, hypnotherapy, what even is that? That's coming from the South and coming from a very religious background. And even my mom would say, that's the devil. That's right. Getting into mind control. Right. Don't get into all of that. You don't know what you're opening up to. And I thought, okay, at that time I was like, Well, anyway, about a year later, no, it wasn't even a year later, just a couple of months later, I thought, I'm going to do this. I kept getting the pull to do it and kept getting this nudge to do that. And I went to this 6-day intensive hypnotherapy training in Florida because I thought I'm going to help my patients with this. Right. So it was from that professional standpoint. And I got there and I realized, oh my gosh, I'm here for me. I'm here for me. And it was like this intense work that we did on each other where we literally went in and processed our trauma. And I was like, blown away by how much trauma all of these medical and healthcare and mental health professionals had that was completely unhealed or undealt with or unresolved. And I thought, wow, we're out here doing this work with patients and we haven't even done our own work, most of us, So it was amazing and life-changing on so many levels. And I came home and I realized, I was like, this is what I want to do. This is my calling. I have to integrate this into my work somehow. And so I started doing it with patients and they started getting better. I mean, people who had lifelong depression and had been on every medication, been to every therapist, people who had agoraphobia and weren't leaving their house, like these people started getting better. They started coming off their meds or decreasing their meds or getting on less meds. They started having massive improvements. And I thought there is something to this work, And so I kind of continue doing that. And now that's mostly what I do.
Okay. So I'm so glad you said what your mom said to it, because that is a lot of people as Christ followers, our response is that hypnotherapy is from the enemy, somebody else trying to get in. If you open that door, the world blows up. Right. So I'm so glad you said that. So talk a little bit about difference between the hypnosis that we hear about that people participate in when they go on a cruise, whatever, versus hypnotherapy, the clinical aspect. Talk about the differences of those.
Yeah. And so when there's still that stigma attached to hypnotherapy, where we think stage hypnosis, when you see someone on stage and they're waving the clock and they're saying, I'm going to make you bark like a dog or cluck like a chicken or whatever. And that's what we kind of have in our mind. And that is not at all what we do from a clinical aspect, from the therapeutic clinical hypnosis and hypnotherapy. And so I think a lot of people are afraid of that. And I think too, things that we don't understand or don't know about, we just automatically have this reaction, like we're afraid of it, right? And so that's definitely not an exception for hypnosis and hypnotherapy, but it is what I tell people too. And they say, I'm afraid, I worry about people getting in my mind or, taking over my mind, and I say, of course, there are people out there who are going to can abuse everything. Like there are people who can and will abuse everything. But when it's done ethically and therapeutically, like it's meant to be, it actually gives you back your own power. It is not about me even doing anything or taking any power or giving you anything. It's about you finding your own power within you and reclaiming your own mind and your own body. And so another thing that I explain is, so the hypnotic state, which also is kind of known as the trance state, which also can be very similar to a meditative state. It's kind of a natural state that we're in and out of all the time. It's just not conscious. So like I say the highway hypnosis is an example. So like if you're driving somewhere, a route that you kind of go a lot, or if you're just driving a long road trip and you're just driving along and then you don't remember how you got there, you don't remember the turns you took, or you don't even remember driving there. It was your subconscious mind was driving the car. Your conscious mind was somewhere else. And so that's kind of like, that's a trance. You were in a trance basically. Or when you get engrossed in a movie or a book and you're so engrossed in this that you're not even aware of your surroundings or the time or what's going on, that's a type of trance state. We're kind of in and out of these trance states all day. Or the dissociation that people have a lot of, that free state, we're dissociated. That's what I would call kind of a negative trance state, Or even when we're playing these scripts over and over in our head that I'm no good, I can never do that, I'm not worthy, that's a trance, a negative trance that we're almost in, you know?
Mm-hmm.
So there's a lot of different kind of definitions of what a trance state is. This is just using that state therapeutically and consciously so that you can go in and shift things on that subconscious level versus just that thinking analytical mind level.
Wow. So give an example, whether if you're open to your own personal example or kind of generically about a patient that was reluctant and I assume focused on one thing that they felt was still plaguing them, traumatizing them, and just kind of what you saw in that in the before after kind of shot for people.
So I have several examples of just massive shifts that happen with people, but one that really sticks out is when I first got certified as a hypnotherapist, and this was 4 years ago, I had this one patient who came in and she said, "You're my last hope," basically. She's like, "If you can't help me, I'm not staying here anymore," meaning in this world.
Yeah.
And I thought, oh my gosh, that's a lot of pressure. But anyway, she was like, I just got back from a facility in Arizona. It was awful. I've been through multiple facilities. I have this severe depression. I can't even get off my couch. I don't shower. I only showered to come see you today. I don't want to live. I've tried every medication and somehow I ended up here and think that you can help me somehow. And so I thought, let's try hypnotherapy because this could possibly, it's a different thing than you've tried. It goes into deeper stuff, you know, and she knew she had some trauma, but she didn't kind of talk about or elaborate what it was. We did one session. 2 days later, she came back and did a hypnotherapy session, and they're about 90 minutes long, the ones that we do, the ones that I do, because they go pretty deep. We did one session, and during that session, she ended up going back to a time when she was like 9 years old, and she had been raped by a man in her church. And so, of course, there was all this also like anger at God and, you know, and all of that stuff that plays into that too. And even during that, and I was so new at doing this, she was like probably my third person doing hypnotherapy with. And I thought, oh my God, I don't even know what I'm doing. This is not going to work. This is going horribly. I don't even know what I'm doing. And anyway, we ended up processing that to the best that we could. She could, and I could. And I know that we had divine help, but, she ended up processing this. And one of the things we do is we process emotions for one, because those get locked up in the body, right? So we know that energy and that emotion gets locked in the body and stored. So we ended up processing emotions, and she didn't even have a huge emotional release. So for instance, when I had done mine, like it was crying and screaming and yelling and all these things. And I thought it was supposed to look like that. And she just had some tears, and it was kind of rather subdued actually.
Right.
But there was some release there. And then so then we also dig into the beliefs. And I said, okay, when this happened to you, what did you believe about yourself? What did you start believing? And there was all these beliefs of, it was my fault. I shouldn't have gone over to that neighbor's house or whatever, this guy. It was my fault. So she had been carrying this for like 40 years, that this is all her fault. And there was all this like, well, I'm unworthy, and this happened to me because I deserved it. And, you know, and as a kid, we're not aware of that when this is happening. But when we look back, that's what we're interpreting, even though we're not aware that we're interpreting those things. And so there was all this, it's my fault. And so we started reframing that. And we literally have a rubber hose and like beat on a punching bag, like to get some of that out and some of that energy out. And she was hitting the bag saying, it's not my fault. It's not my fault. It's your fault. And she was getting all this out and have this huge purge as if she was that child again speaking. So it's about giving that voice to that child who didn't have one at the time and all of that. And we closed the session, and I thought, well, that didn't go too well. Anyway, she left, and for a couple of days, I told my assistant, I was like, call and check on her, because we really stirred up some stuff and I want to make sure she's okay. And she wouldn't answer, and we weren't getting any calls back. And I was emailing her, and I was so worried. And I was like, we've pulled up some stuff. I don't know. She might be in a horrible place. And like 3 weeks later, she had a follow-up appointment to come in. And she walked into this follow-up appointment. And this was a different person who came into my office. I mean, her entire aura, her energy, her attitude, her personality was completely different. She was lighter. She was happy. She was smiling. She was like, you know, I I feel so much better. I'm getting out of my house now. I'm going to these meetings. I'm meeting it with friends for lunch, and I'm taking care of myself, and I want to do all these things. And I was like, oh my God, that worked. And even she had trouble saying that it was actually that helped. So,
right.
Because people can't put it together that would have such an impact, right?
Mm-hmm.
People just can't fathom sometimes that would have such an impact. Anyway, so she was talking about how much better she felt and how she's getting out. And so she continued to get better. And that was one session. And that just really stuck with me, because even in that session, I thought, this is not even going that well. And she's not really having all of the emotional release like maybe she should or whatever. But it changed her life, you know?
Oh, yeah, absolutely. That's so similar to the type of trauma work I do. And so I do something I introduced to a long time ago. It was life-changing for me. It's called PEER. It has to do with primitive energy emotional release.
Oh, wow.
And so it's a lot of, twisting a towel and hitting away the hatred put on you or the abuse put on you. It's that kind of thing. And so we go into a trance. It's a trance regression. And just be able to get to that part. And this is done slowly and safely, and not everybody can do this or needs to do this, but to get to that part who has been burdened with all the shame and blame and the beliefs that come from that and the behavior that comes from it. So when it comes to the release part, people really struggle because it's embarrassing.
Right.
It's weird. What's normal is road rage. What's normal is divorce. What's normal is getting drunk. Us actually releasing our emotions.
Right.
Is considered abnormal.
Absolutely. Oh my gosh. And that's amazing. And yes, I love that. I didn't even realize you did that, but that's very, very similar work. And I think this type of work is becoming more common, and it's called different things and there's different ways, but I am just so happy to hear that, because and you did that. How long ago did you learn that?
When I started that, it's probably 15 years ago.
Oh, wow.
Yeah.
Wow.
It was.
I do think that's really amazing. I do think this stuff is becoming more common, which I'm thankful for, because that's how we heal the stuff. We have to go into that stuff and into the processing of it and into the releasing of that and into the releasing of those beliefs that we took on. But I do find that some people are very resistant to that at first. And then some may not ever want to do that. And that's okay too, because there's still shifts that happen, through the processing and the healing work. But I find that the ones who do, there's such a relief that happens from that, and just this lightness of just letting that go and letting that out and being heard and being seen and allowing themselves to feel the rage and the anger that they had to hold in as a child from being abused or from being mistreated or not heard or whatever. There's such healing in that, and a lot of people are resistant to that because they are taught or believe that it's weak to show emotions, or it's embarrassing to show emotions, or I have to hold everything in, or even crying. Like, I'm not allowed to cry because that shows weakness, and I have a joke that when I do a session and people cry, I'm like, yes, I know things moved.
Right.
Which I know there's something happening anyway, but it gives me an objective thing to say, oh, I know things are moving when there's emotion coming out. It's a release, a catharsis. So that's a thing I do too, is really educate people about feeling your emotions and allowing them and welcoming them and not repressing them and holding them in, because that creates a whole nother issue,
Right. And the trust they have to have in you.
Right.
And I know you have to be in ventral vagal, you have to be in your own connection, be able to be available to them. And that's a lot, as a practitioner, but they have to trust you to go into those places with you. Right. And so for yours to be a little bit different than the kind of stuff I do, and it just sounds amazing what you do, is because their second session and they're starting the hypnotherapy. Right. So what's that like for you in the sense of getting past, that initial thing of them understanding, because a lot of people can't even close their eyes because of trust.
Yes. And I have had a couple of people who had difficulty closing their eyes because of the trust, and I'm not closing my eyes. That's not safe.
Right.
It's a literal survival thing that's built in, that it is not safe if I close my eyes, and I'm not doing that. And with them, it's just very, very slow. And I don't even recommend going deep into things when it's a lot of ego strengthening that we do in the beginning for those patients or those clients. And ego strengthening, meaning just kind of going into the relaxation state, just going into that meditative state and just being there for just a few moments and allowing their nervous system to almost recalibrate to that and feel what that's like, because their nervous system is not used to that, right? It's used to being fight or flight or freeze, not this relaxation response or this calm state. So really trying to anchor that in, using the ego strengthening and pulling in like different parts of themselves that are the wise, the inner wise part, or that part that is very strong and that survives everything. Like there's, and it's a lot of what we call ego parts therapy. So we do a lot of that and pull in these parts and even spiritual connections, spiritual guides, if that's what they have and that's what they want to do. We pull it all in because it's mind, body, spirit. And there's a lot of that happens, the ego strengthening and just recalibrating and rewiring the nervous system for a while before they're ever ready to go into anything like that. But what I found now is that I've kind of shifted from saying, like I used to believe, oh my gosh, everybody needs hypnotherapy, because I used to say everybody needs therapy. And then I was like, well, everybody needs hypnotherapy. And I realized, no, they don't, because not everybody wants that. Not everybody's ready for that. And so I've shifted, and even on my website, kind of state that this is really for people, and just attracting the people who really want to do the work, who are really want to go in and do that deeper work, and say that, this is really for people, or the people who are right for me and for this relationship is usually the ones who want to do the deeper work and who are tired of doing the conventional methods and who are tired of living the same way and repeating the same patterns. So most people now that come to me, they've already done everything and tried everything, and they're ready to do that deeper work. And so that's just right now kind of my ideal person that I work with. And I work with, if anyone comes to me, I feel like it's for a purpose, and they found me for a reason. Like, I think there are no accidents. So anyone who comes to me, I meet them where they are, and some people are ready to dive right in immediately. And then some people need a couple sessions to kind of slowly venture into it. And then some people come and they think they're ready. And then they realize after 1 or 2 sessions, and they start getting into all this very uncomfortable stuff and these uncomfortable emotions. And they're like, maybe I'm not ready right now. I changed my mind. And then sometimes they'll come back months later, and then sometimes they may not. So I just meet them where they are.
Yeah, that's just beautiful. How much does your faith come out blatantly? Because I know your faith is in everything you do, right? It doesn't just ebb and flow. Like you're always looking through the lens of Christ. But for you, how do you see your faith coming in more clearly during the hypnotherapy?
Oh gosh, all the time. So that's one thing that I've really worked on over the last few years through doing this work, is really tuning in with my intuition, my higher power, and pulling in my resources, my spiritual resources. And what happens is, usually what I tell clients too is, in the beginning, I'll say, this type of work works with all aspects of the self: mental, physical, emotional, and spiritual. So I just, ask everybody, is there a spiritual component that you would like to pull into this? And if not, that's totally okay. Definitely don't have to, but if there is, I'd like to honor that for you and bring that in. And so most people will say, yes, I'm a Christian, or I'm a Buddhist, or I'm a whatever. And what I say is, what do you call that? What do you call your higher power? Because I want to be able to honor and respect everyone's beliefs and be able to pull that in for them. And so we'll kind of have a part of the session where we'll ask their, Jesus, God, Buddha, Krishna, whomever, universe, love, nature, oneness, to come into the session to be with them for their own protection and healing and whatever. So it's a beautiful process, I believe, of just honoring everybody's belief system and pulling those resources for them and myself in to assist with the session. And it always turns out beautiful. And then I have had a couple of people who have zero spiritual connection or spiritual, basically just almost atheist or agnostic. And so when that happens, what I say is there any, do you feel like there's any connection between you and the universe, or do you feel like there's do you have a connection to nature? And they'll say, yes, I do have a really strong connection with nature. And so what we'll do is pull in nature and that connection piece to nature to pull in that feel like they're connected to something else besides themselves. And I found that very helpful for a lot of people. And then I had one patient who she didn't have any belief system or religion or anything, or spirituality or spiritual practices. And I said, is there anything you would like? Would you like to connect into more like to yourself or nature or whatever, or this idea of love or this idea of oneness? And she's like, yeah, you know what? I want to connect more with myself. And so what I used for her is had her like imagine and visualize this part of herself that is extremely compassionate and so loving and so present and so just there for her. And she cried and cried, and she's like, oh my God, I can see this part of me that's holding me and so compassionate and having so much compassion and love for myself. And I've never felt that from anything or anyone in my life before. And so to me, that is just how I pull it in, because there's it's that deeper connection to something else besides ourselves that can be so healing. And to me, this is why I don't worry too much about the terminology or what people call it, and for myself, I know what I believe in and what I have, and again, in the questions I mentioned that I'm open to any and all religions. I'm open to, and I grew up a Christian, and I still sort of consider myself a Christian, but I also have issues with the religiosity of Christianity, and some of that dogmatic things. And so I kind of disconnect from that. But anyway, that's how I kind of pull in the spirituality piece for people.
So for me, what you just said is evidence of you being more of a whole and safe practitioner. And a lot of people don't understand that the person that you're seeing, whether they're your NP, your PA, your MD, your therapist, whatever they are, if they are trying to get you to be somebody besides who you are in that moment, you're not safe. From being little, we have been told who we are by someone else. The condition been placed on us. As a mental health practitioner, I don't have a right to do that. People have a right to say they only want to see Christians. That's fine. But I can tell you I've got people who now have different beliefs about themselves, about God, and about this world, because I met them exactly where they were. And who am I not?
Absolutely. Oh, that gives me chill bumps, because I mean, people could have life-changing experiences.
Absolutely.
From doing this type of work. And who are we to say that? And it's everybody's right to say that, but to choose to only see specific people or this group of people or that group of people. And that's fine. But I feel like it's very limiting.
Right. Absolutely. Like, it's an honor whoever walks into my door. And so I've had people say, don't talk about God. I'm not going to talk about God.
Right.
Like, they are the paying consumer. Right. I'm not going to talk about God.
Absolutely.
9 times out of 10, eventually they say, hey, can we talk about God?
Yeah.
Right. Right.
And because as they heal and open things up, it just automatically connects them to that part of themselves that they sometimes didn't even know existed.
That's right.
That spiritual part, that soul, that spirit part. And so I agree that it's, I had a lady the other day, actually yesterday, and she's like, no, that's not part of my world or life right now, spirituality at all. And I was like, okay, that's totally fine. There's no judgment at all. I just like to ask and honor people's beliefs, whatever they are. And so we didn't talk about that at all. And we, again, just pulled in the empowered self part of her. That's that very wise part of her, that compassionate part of her. And we don't have to call it, we can just call it that, the empowered self part of you.
Right. Right. Absolutely. Do you see any similarities between the hypnotherapy and EMDR?
Yes. So I haven't actually taken, and I want to, the EMDR training at some point. But from what I have heard other therapists and practitioners talk about, and from what I've heard patients say about it, it is similar. However, I have had people say that they've tried EMDR and it was somewhat helpful, but that this work just goes so much deeper and that it's more of a safe processing, because I've had people say that when they did EMDR, they felt like they were almost thrown into there and then like kind of left in this almost re-traumatization type feeling. Some people, not everyone. But, and this is why I think the hypnotherapy is so good, because it really gets you into that calm state, that relaxed state, and really anchors that in and is soothing for the nervous system before you ever go into any of that other. And it's so much easier to regulate it and control it from that place versus just going straight into a traumatic event, And so in the bilateral stimulation, of course, I know that that is very helpful. And sometimes, I even teach patients to do that for themselves, the bilateral stimulation stuff. But I've just heard some people say this goes deeper, or this feels more safer. But then again, some people are, all they want to do is they don't want to go deeper. So EMDR is great and wonderful for them for starting out. I find it's a good bridge, I think, between talk therapy and between the hypnotherapy.
So for those who want to check out EMDR, it has to do with eye movement, desensitization response. And if you're watching this on YouTube, it's like if you do your hands, cross them and do like a tap on each shoulder, that's considered a soothing thing that can help with the bilateral stimulation. And the bilateral is your eyes going back and forth because there are a hand or there's a machine with a light going back and forth to help you safely go into your trauma. I will tell you, I'm certified in it, and it bored me. And it bored my patients. It did.
Really?
It did. We all got bored with it.
Really?
And I think it's because people come to me are used to hitting things and screaming and doing whatever. And we all just got bored. It's very effective. It is.
That's super big. Like, shoot, let's do that. That's very effective. Let's just get it out. Oh, wow, that's amazing. Okay. Yeah. So I wonder if I would probably be bored with it too, and my patients would probably be bored with it. Maybe.
I'm probably the only person that's ever said that they're bored with it, because everybody else is on the bandwagon and they love it. And they love great. And that's why I love there's so many different modalities, and that's part of this podcast is educating people that, just like the woman that came to you and said, this is the last stop.
Yeah.
I've been in facilities, no one's gone deeper with her. No one's helped her get to the core of it, right? Like if there's the behavior is the last thing you see. Behavior comes after a whole lot of rupture, a whole lot of shame and blame and trauma. Then there's the behavior, right?
Absolutely. Yeah. 100%. Yes.
Yeah. You said earlier you said the word awakening, and I think that might be the one word that really sums up what happened to you. Like it's just like you slowly, because there was so much trauma, different parts of you just became awake.
Yes.
And till you started waking up others.
Yes. And it's still happening. And I believe it's a lifelong process. I think it does get easier, for sure. But I think we're always learning and growing, all of us, even if we don't think we are. I think we're all kind of learning and growing. Some of us just choose a little bit of an accelerated path of growing, maybe. I don't know. But I think we're all here to just learn and grow. Ultimately.
Yeah, absolutely. It's always a transformation. It's just a very slow process. And the more trauma you have, the slower the process.
Absolutely.
Has to be whatsoever. But what an inspiration you are for anyone to know that there's a way to go from a child who now is just completely frozen and shut down to someone very curious.
Yeah.
Yeah. Curiosity and compassion are the places to be.
Absolutely. Absolutely. Yeah. They saved my life.
Yeah, right. It's great.
I mean, just being able to dive in and say, what is this? What is going on with me? And how can I fix this? How can I make this better? Is there a way? Can it be made better?
Right. Yeah.
That's then deciding that that's my calling is to go teach people, to heal myself and teach others how to heal themselves. Mm-hmm. That's my ultimate purpose.
Yeah. You definitely have repurposed your life. It's absolutely amazing. All right. So I'm going to put you on the hot seat. Okay. Since you're a therapist, you're going on the hot seat. So I'm going to ask you a few questions and just whatever comes to mind pretty quickly. Tell me what tell us what comes to mind. Okay. All right. You're on the hot seat. Here we go. First word that comes to mind when you hear the word choice.
Available.
Excellent. What's your favorite podcast?
The Adult Chair by Michelle Chalfant.
The Adult Chair. I had not heard of that. I'm going to check
Michelle
that out.
Chalfant. Oh, it's amazing. She's a therapist out of Nashville. Actually, she's originally from North Carolina. Well, originally from New York, but now she's moved back to North Carolina in Davidson area. But it's the Adult Chair, and it's all of this inner child work. And she does all this similar work that we do in hypnotherapy. And she's amazing.
Okay, great. I'll check it. And she's in Davidson. Oh, that's great.
Now she's just recently moved back to Davidson. Yeah, she was in Nashville for a few years.
Cool. Good to know. Okay, what is on your nightstand?
Books, stacks of books that I haven't read all of. Stacks of books that I've read, like a few chapters here and there, and then I go back and forth.
Right, that's great. Okay, so you recently got a tattoo, is that right?
Yes, I did.
Yes. You want to tell everybody what your tattoo is?
It says, if you can see it on my arm, it says, everything is inside. I mean, everything is within. Everything is within.
Everything within. All right. That's great.
And then I have this one that says, be the light, I got a couple of years ago.
I love it. All right. So if you got a tattoo at age 17, before you found that book, what would the tattoo have said then? This
is so funny because actually I did get one at 17 when I did it myself.
That is so wonderful.
Oh my God. This is what
I'm sure it's perfect too, right?
It's what we call the jailhouse
yes.
test, right?
Yeah. That's street cred. That is street cred right there.
Street cred. This is embarrassing. I can't believe I'm saying this where it's recorded, but I'm going to say it. So I learned how to do tattoos with a needle and thread and the Indian ink, and you would tie the thread around the needle and then dip it in the Indian ink, and I would do it for my friends, like mine. This is so crazy and so embarrassing. I had a $sign on my hand right here on the right there, and then so I had that $sign, and I put my initials on my foot, L.A. Liz Allward at the time. Right. So I put a handmade tattoo with my initials on my foot. Anyway, years later, when I started working in retail, I was very embarrassed about this one on my hand and very ashamed of that $sign there.
Well, what's funny is that you're dirt poor putting a $sign on you.
Dirt poor. I know, because
like you couldn't even afford a tattoo, and you like put a $sign. This is fantastic.
Seriously, but maybe that was like, the obsession with one day I'm going to have some money. I don't know.
I love it.
Well, and and I loved rap music back then too, and that was all the thing. The $signs and the rap music and all that, and that was the thing. So
that is awesome.
But I got that taken off. I got it cut out a few years later when I was working in retail. I got it surgically removed. That one.
Okay. Yeah. Okay. So what? And we'll just say your high school teachers. What would you want them to know about you today?
I don't know why that just brought a little wave of emotion there, but
that's good.
Just thinking about that 17-year-old who was so lost. There was this one teacher that I do remember who was Miss Bibi House. She was my French teacher in 9th grade, and she was just so kind and compassionate that I could feel that from her. And she's the one who would call and check on me and talk to my mom. I would say thank you to her for reaching out, because so many teachers, I think, don't.
Yeah.
Or they just don't notice, or they just don't think maybe they can do anything. And I think just reaching out or just extending compassion to a child can help change their life.
Mm-hmm. Yeah, that's beautiful. I love that. What do you like the most about yourself?
That I love to learn and grow.
Mm-hmm. You sure do.
And that I have so much compassion.
Yeah, lots of compassion. All right, last question for you. When you hear flip your lid, from now on, what will you think?
Well, I love it. Number one, I'm going to have to go back and watch your other podcast. Flip your lid. When I hear that, in my mind, I visualize like literally a lid popping off, but I just see myself in my hypnotherapy sessions hitting on a bag. But I don't know. Like, I think it's a very cool title. I would like to know kind of how you came up with that for your podcast, if you have time to answer that. But I don't know. I think it's really cool, and I can't wait to listen to the other ones.
Well, I'll tell you quick so the audience will know. So when COVID hit, I had the honor, I'm one of the communicators at my church, and I was asked to come on and just talk a little bit about what's happening to people with their mental health and their emotional lives, everything happening. And so I took the opportunity to share with them Dr. Dan Siegel's brainchild of Flip Your Lid. So you can go watch a YouTube of it. But this is explanation those who are on YouTube. So this is your brain. Basically, I'm holding up my hand. This is your brainstem. You got your spine. This is your amygdala. This is your limbic system. So this is your cortex. So here where your nails are of your prefrontal cortex, right? So for us to be connected to our emotions and have regulations of our trauma responses, of our habitual responses, emotions, then your prefrontal cortex and your cortex have to be connected to your limbic system, to your amygdala. Well, things happen to us and we flip our lid.
That's so brilliant.
Yeah. And the longer your cortex is detached from your amygdala, the more struggle you're going to have reattaching, reconnecting.
Oh, that's amazing.
It is.
Oh, I love it so much. That's amazing. And I love Dr. Siegel too. And I think I've heard him explain that maybe. Like, I haven't heard him. Does he use the term flip your lid?
Yeah, or it may say flip my lid. Maybe that's just a little bit so I wouldn't get sued. I don't even know.
I haven't heard him actually. I mean, I've seen him do the whole showing on the hand, like explaining the brain and all that. But that's amazing. I love that so much.
So when I got to explain to everybody, it resonated so much with them that it just kind of stayed with me. And so when this came up and I was coming up with a name, I was like, I really want to talk to people whose lid's been flipped.
Wow.
They've reconnected and now they're helping other people.
Oh, that's amazing. That is so brilliant. Yeah. I love it. Love it. Love it. Yeah. Good luck with all that. I can't.
I appreciate
so you just started this after COVID.
Yeah.
Okay. Right. That's amazing. Right. I can't wait to keep following and listening.
Oh, I appreciate that. Well, so that we can follow you, tell them a little bit about your website or Facebook or Instagram handle.
So my website is www.burkholderwellness.com, and Burkholder is Burkholder. Instagram is Burkholder Wellness. Facebook is Burkholder Wellness. So I'm on all of them.
That is great. All right. So if y'all are interested in learning a little bit more about hypnotherapy and having Liz be that person for you that helps you travel a little bit further into your pain so you don't have to live in your pain, then she would be. That's a way of getting in touch with her. Liz, thank you. This has been amazing. Thank you so much. And to all of you, I know you've heard something today that flipped your lid, but we hope you also were able to reconnect to who God says you are.
Thank you so much.
Thank you for listening to Flip Your Lid with Kim Honeycutt. Please subscribe, rate, and share. You can find Kim on Facebook or Instagram at KBHoneycutt. To get an autographed copy of Kim's book, visit butyourmotherlovesyou.com. Remember, no matter what, treat yourself well today.